Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Nxchange show. Today, I have a very special guest from the Netherlands. I got the CEO of Nxchange with me today, and we're going to talk about their digital securities exchange. Please welcome Marleen Evertsz. Welcome, Marleen.
Hey, Prem, how are you doing?
Doing wonderful. So we are live on LinkedIn Live as well on video. We're broadcasting right now as well on our phone as well. So the whole thing is this. First of all, welcome to Dubai. How has Dubai treating you the last 24 hours?
How amazing is this? Yesterday we were in Amsterdam, now we are in Dubai, and it's actually pretty well. It's amazing how innovative people are here in the Middle East, and you can really tell the difference between the emerging market that is going on over here, all the good energy, all the people that have great ideas, and basically matching that up with the regulatory framework that we have within Nxchange, and we actually have some quite good, interesting meetings.
Fantastic.
So far.
So for you guys out up there, Nxchange is Europe's first regulated digital securities exchange. It took Marleen and her team basically over 3 years to come and build this exchange from the ground up. Everything has been done in-house, and you guys have the license to operate out of Europe. So congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you, Prem. Yeah, maybe I can share a little bit about the background of Nxchange. We've been active in digitized assets, trading digitized assets for over 10 years already. And in 2016, we thought, wouldn't it be a great idea if we can also do this for securities?
Okay.
Well, in Europe, there the trouble starts, because then you need all the permits, which we have been applying for since then. And by now, Nxchange has all the permits it needs to be able to raise capital or list any security within the European market. That means we have a regulated market permit, we have a multilateral trading facility permit, and we have a broker-dealer permit, all excluded in one. And that means that we actually are regulated in a similar way as to all the securities exchanges within Europe. That provides us with, that combined with the upcoming social networks, the upcoming new technology, Nxchange is fully built on decentralized technology. That provides us with options to list any asset, large or small, and to tokenize any asset, large or small, offer it to any type of investor, whether it's institutional or retail, from now on, which we are basically doing now.
Fantastic. I mean, what I hear from you actually is that the whole ecosystem has been kind of connected with all the dots put together. Now, one of the things which tokenization or digital securities was meant to do was to disintermediate the whole, the layers in between. Now, what you are telling me is that actually you take a customer, they open an account, and you take them through that journey in buying that digital security, doing the settlement, all into one ecosystem.
Exactly, yeah. And Nxchange is basically, it's a trading platform that connects into the venues where the assets are stored. So whether it's a security, which is stored as a CSD, whether it's gold stored in a vault, whether it's land registered in a land register, Nxchange connects to those locations, where we can do the peer-to-peer trading, and we do the 24/7 real-time DVP settled.
Real time. That's
real time. Yes,
amazing.
absolutely.
Amazing.
And we do that. So by doing that, by being able to do that, you disintermediate a whole sector. So if you look at the traditional exchange, to go from one buyer to one seller, you basically need to go through about 8 steps, going from a broker to a bank possibly, to a trading, clearing and settlement player, an exchange, and then the other side as well. Yeah. Within Nxchange, that all happens at the same moment on the same platform. So Nxchange facilitates the role of the broker, of the exchange. We do the onboarding of the investors, the onboarding of the assets. What we don't do is we connect the asset to the token. We leave that up to registered entities, licensed entities. that are able to do so. So again, for the securities, that would be the central securities depository, confirming that that asset is really that asset. That always needs to be an independent player. And because of that, we can guarantee that what's actually traded on exchange is also really the asset that someone owns.
So if I look at this or hear this basically, I mean, Euronext in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, you are actually a competitor towards them going forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have the exact same licenses as Euronext has. The difference with Nxchange is that we have more flexibility. Flexibility towards the future to not only trade securities. We can list any product that Euronext is currently listed.
Okay.
We can tokenize all the products that are traded on Euronext. But where we specialize in is by focusing on real assets. We're trying to get as close as to the asset as possible, making the lines between the investor and the issuer as short as possible. So what we particularly really like at Nxchange is asset-backed securities for single assets, real estate, for example, projects in the energy transition, but even smaller companies, startups and scale-ups that require funding and that currently cannot raise capital on the traditional capital markets.
Okay, so asset-backed, of course, that is something where a lot of people have been talking for a lot of time, but you actually did it, right? I mean, if you look at asset-backed, gold-backed, for example, I get to hear a lot of people. That is also something you have already done, are actually offering right now.
Yes, we're doing that in the sister company of Nxchange.
Okay.
The sister company of Nxchange is Gold Republic, which is there for almost 10 years already, where we offer physically allocated gold to investors, meaning that we basically trade the legal ownership title in the gold bar itself. So we don't securitize it.
Okay.
Securitization is a process of basically putting an asset into an SPV and then issuing securities on that. But with gold, because it's uniquely identifiable, we can trade the legal ownership title itself.
Got it.
So we've done that for 10 years now. We've done that for allocated gold, and after that also started doing that for unallocated gold, pooled allocated gold, and we do that on an international level, not only for ourselves but also for our white labeled customers that use our platform.
All right. So one of the things I found very, very unique is that you also work with banks actually. Something I've seen, which is called, for example, Rabo and Kraut, is the fact that a bank who's got a pool of professional analysts on board, basically looking at different projects, they are able to give their valuation, their input in towards it, and then you go to the crowd basically and are able to raise money from retail investors.
Yes. So when I mentioned that we do all these types of assets, to be able to do so, to be able to run an exchange on such a level as we are doing, we believe that we can only do that by collaborating with the most professional players in the market. So if you look at corporate funding, to list a company itself on its own, it's a difficult process. And if you want to do that on the most efficient scale, in the most cost-efficient scale as well, you basically need to create a funnel to be able to do that. So corporate financing, startup and scale-up financing, for example, we do through Rabobank.
Got it.
With Rabobank, we have set up Rabo and Kraut, which means that Rabobank is offering scale-up and startup companies hybrid funding. That means that Rabobank finances between 10 and 90% in bank financing, and the rest they put on the Rabo and Kraut exchange, which is built on Nxchange.
So they're using your platform.
They're using our platform, our licenses
license
to be able to do so.
Okay.
So meaning that Rabobank, who already has a relationship with these companies, who already knows the background, who already needs to do the due diligence to be able to provide the bank financing, can easily also do the last part of the due diligence of the companies to see whether they are fit for a public listing, because that's in fact what we are talking about. So having that funnel in front of it, and it still means that the actual company is then listed on an exchange, that is a huge advantage for us, at least, to make sure that the assets that end up on exchange are are assets that have been to a queued system. And Rabobank is planning to do this on a large scale. So they've now listed, I think, their 6th or 7th company. They started with debt financing, so bonds, issuing bonds on Nxchange. They now are in the process. By the way, it's live right now. It's the first equity listing of Rabobank.
Okay.
And Rabobank then plans to list between 100 and 150 companies a year. Wow. So that's a significant volume, and we would never be able to do that on our own. So this is what we're doing with Rabobank, but with another partner, for example, Waterwheel Green Securities, we're focusing on the green securities market.
Okay.
What does Waterwheel do? They focus completely at projects in the energy transition, for example, solar. And what they do, they are starting with exploiting a rooftop solar. So they take buildings, real estate, and they legally separate the rooftop from the building. And then they create energy production companies on these rooftops.
Got it.
Solar energy. And these projects are heavily subsidized, so the cash flow streams are extremely stable and therefore very interesting investment products from a debt perspective, but also from an equity perspective. Since there are a lot of projects in this area that need to be financed, and there's a lot of demand for these projects, but they currently don't find each other because on the traditional capital markets, they cannot be listed, they're simply too small.
Got it.
However, on Nxchange we are able to list any project of any size. So we are we're basically in Q1 of next year. We are going to start with listing rooftops, doing IPOs on single rooftops, and not one rooftop. No, potentially thousands of rooftops.
Wow.
So that is Waterwheel Green Securities. With ABN, we're currently setting up a pilot with financing electrical vehicles on Nxchange. So, and that's how you endlessly can create asset-backed securities with real assets, with real income streams. And the only thing that we do is organize it on the background, make sure it's tradable, make sure that it can be invested in, make sure that the investors are onboarded in the proper way. And that's our function.
Fantastic. What you are really also trying to do, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is basically trying to get the institutions on board, but at the same time also work with community. And because I'm a big believer in community, I believe that would be the next wave to get new kind of investors into the market by having good communication, interaction with our community. But this is something you're already doing right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think if we look at the investors, the investor of now, they demand more. They want more information, shorter connections. They want to know who they are dealing with. They are simply not taking everything for granted. So what we are doing is we're making the lines between the issuer and the community very short, giving even the smallest shareholder the opportunity to connect to the issuer just as any large shareholder. Why should there be a difference? But we can take it a step further because we can issue security tokens or tokenized securities.
Yes.
But why not combine that with a utility token, for example, to be able to offer that community a different way or a different reward next to a financial reward that you could potentially offer them on the capital market. For example, you just named that was your
Yes, I mean, this is an example I give quite often actually to people. It's about the fact, for example, you have Nike sports shoes, and you're a user of it, and then Nike can say, hey, that because you're a loyal user, why don't you also become a shareholder? Because usually when you become a shareholder, you act differently than just wearing and being supporter of a brand. So having said that, why don't you have shares, digital shares, for example, of Nikes, and then every time you hold the Nike shares, you're able to get every quarter a discount on the next time you're buying your next pair of shoes. So giving these kind of incentives really makes sense, where you can have a digital security, but also have something like a loyalty program, a utility token, which can give this combination going forward. So that is something which would be awesome to see in the next wave of happening. But I'm very glad that already right now this is something very unique, and I've never seen in my limited knowledge that anybody has done basically this whole ecosystem, combined it together to make it A, user-friendly, but B, also really disintermediating and trying to get into real time of settlement. Here in Nasdaq Dubai, for example, it takes 3 working days to settle your securities going forward, and this is something where you have really put in so much effort to trying to get this back into a instant moment, because I really believe, Marleen, we're all in this one-click society nowadays, right?
Absolutely.
So you get your phone, your wallet, and you want to have, last week I ordered a pizza with extra pepperoni, and you just want to click it again to repeat that order instead of saying, hey man, extra cheese, extra this, or, without any salt, and going forward. I mean, I think this is really what the community or the next generation is really asking, and where you are playing a big role in the digital securities market.
Yeah, and maybe I can, because we actually have a couple of examples of this. So, for example, if we take our first listing, this was our minimum viable product of an exchange. They got listed in 2016. Mm-hmm. So this was pre-ICO timeframe, but the communities, the social communities were upcoming. So this company is called Fastnet, and Fastnet is into these charging stations.
Okay.
Nobody knew Fastnet. However, what Fastnet did very well is they basically had a community of sponsors, of people that wanted the world to become a bit greener. So Fastnet approached us with the idea of getting listed on our exchange, and we said, great, let's gonna do it, and let's test if this really works with these communities. So Fastnet, within the time frame of, I would say, a month, maybe 5 weeks, raised about 3.5 million euros. And if you looked at the median of the investment, it was very low. It was 2,000 euros, meaning that this was this huge community that said, okay, we want to sponsor Fastnet. We want to make sure that these guys are actually being able to expand. And having said that, how did Fastnet raise this capital? 2 advertisements in local newspapers and Twitter.
Wow.
And that was it. And so this was pre-ICO, and then we saw the ICOs coming up. Mm-hmm. And obviously there are some bad examples and some fraud, etc. But the community thought, by taking your investors serious, onboarding them, making sure that they understand what happened. And by the way, Fastnet, after this first raise, raised tens of millions hereafter, within the same community, without any investment banks, without anything in between. And I think that is such an important message. It's like, if you have if there's a good asset there, and if there's a serious management behind it, there are people willing to invest, but you only need to organize it.
Totally agreed. And so I mean, I meet so many people who just doing only an issuance platform, or somebody who's got just a broker dealer license, for example, or somebody who is doing only lending in the capital market. So what you've really done is get these players together and able to make that user experience, seamless. Because if can we briefly talk about the ABN AMRO blockchain bank account?
Yes. Okay. So in the Netherlands, you cannot hold, as a fintech company, you cannot hold cash on behalf of an investor.
Okay.
That's one. And 2 is, we absolutely did not want to have like T+2 settlement. That's prehistoric. We don't do that. So we basically said, ABN AMRO Bank, we need to sit. We need to talk, and we have this idea on how we can set up a blockchain bank account, which means that if you open an account on an exchange, then you underwater open a bank account at ABN, meaning that ABN, under its umbrella, under its license, basically looks after your money, mm-hmm. because they're a bank and they're equipped to look after your money, but through the blockchain, mm-hmm. we can manage that cash position. We have a certain mandate to settle transactions. And because we can do that, we can also always see that someone has money to be able to settle a transaction in a security and the other way around. So that was fantastic, but what's even better is that now more brokers are connecting to this same blockchain bank account of ABN, which if they allow their customers to do so, then they can also get connected to Nxchange. So the reason why Nxchange currently has all the facilities in one area is because we didn't want to be reliant to anyone, which doesn't mean that we are happy to invite issuers, brokers to Nxchange and to use our platform, use our model to do what we are doing. I think the only way to make this new transition into the capital markets is by collaborating. In the past, we've seen that all the exchanges are very siloed. They operate on their own. They become these big giants, basically. And I think we need to think about the investor perspective. As an investor, I want to be able to move between platforms, move between exchanges.
Absolutely.
Want to go straight away. I'm not talking about real-time settlement on one exchange. No, I want real-time settlement between exchanges. So that's why we say okay, let's open up, let's collaborate with new players, but also with the incumbents, and see how we can build the best model.
All right. So what are the future ideas for Nxchange going forward? I mean, a lot of people are working on this digital securities next wave, basically. As I said, traditionally capital markets, we look at financial centers like New York, London, Dubai, Singapore or Hong Kong are trying to do something similar. How is Nxchange looking at this world, traditional world, going forward?
Well, I think about 2 years ago, I said it would take a maximum of 5 years before this whole world is changing. And my reason for pinpointing to 5 years is because that's what it's averagely taking a player to get the right permits in place before the whole market is going to change. And you already see it happening. You see exchanges popping up over the whole world with the right licenses in place. And these are not traditional exchanges. These are new exchanges, new trading venues. And as soon as they get their licenses, they can start listing assets. So exactly as we are doing, we want to list as many assets as soon as possible, great quality assets though. Of course. And they will do so as well. So that will change the whole dynamic of the capital market. It will take away boundaries because if you can easily move between exchanges and if you have the smart contracts determining what can be executed and what not, if we connect utility to securities, if we connect payments to exchanges, it's gonna change our way how we use our assets, how we do our asset allocation. We won't go back to fiat all the time. We probably keep our value stored in assets, any asset, and we just use them to pay for our services when we need to. So it's going to change our lives. It's going to change the dynamics. It's going to change the offering actually, and also the way the companies or the projects that need to be funded, how they position themselves and what they are going to do, and how serious they need to take the people that not only use their services but also finance their services.
Got it. I mean, so it's exciting times for sure as we go forward and we try to, develop and look how the market is going to accept this and embrace this basically. Because in the end, we need community to embrace this new technology and to use it going forward. And as you said correctly, I mean, this new economy where we are at, where we want to have this user friendliness going forward, because I started investing maybe I'm one of the luckiest one that I started investing at 18, but if you look at it, I mean, most people really start investing after they start working, maybe their second, third job at age 30, or where they're thinking of, hey, let me buy a house, let me do some kind of investment, that they start looking into these securities because it's not very common to do so. So I think you're making it more democratic by giving easy access towards it, but at the same time also complying whatever the regulators have been putting in place, because something you've told me also before, that the securities law are the securities law, and that's not going to change, but now it is how can we use it in our advantage using technology going forward.
Exactly. The securities law is there for a reason. We've made mistakes in the past, so we should learn from them and just improve our offering to the public.
Absolutely. So before I let you go, I wanted to talk still about smart contracts.
Yes.
Because I feel that right now smart contracts, people think about this for example, quarterly dividends being paid out but this is basically the real mix where we can see our imagination go beyond going forward. And is there within your ecosystem right now a kind of smart contract which can already give this kind of loyalty points going forward, or is that still something we have to wait till as our market matures more?
No, at the moment we are developing them.
Okay.
Yes, for a specific.
Is there anything you can share with us right now, or is that still under?
Well, we will share in Q1 of next year, but it has something to do with mobility. So.
Fantastic. Yeah. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to have you back again in Dubai, going forward. And it's really phenomenal. I mean, I look at many projects worldwide. As you know, in the US you have different kind of digital exchanges also coming up, but something with Nxchange is doing in Europe is really phenomenal. Marleen, I really want to wish you all the best and all the success going forward, and I hope to speak to you soon again.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.